my name is Helena and I'm the creator behind Fabel Knitwear. I am here to show you my brand new knitting pattern, the Heirloom Jumper. The Heirloom Jumper is one of 5 knitting patterns in my Heirloom collection. So this is the namesake of the whole collection, and there are 2 variations that you can do of it. You can knit it with a more distinctive puff shoulder or a more subtle version, and I'm going to talk more in detail about all the features and these different varieties and everything. But first up, I just really want to show you the pattern properly, both versions. Have a look. So here you have them. The white version, the cream version, is the version with the more subtle puff shoulder, and this brown version has the more distinctive puff shoulders. Now let's talk specifics about this pattern. This pattern was inspired by late Victorian, early Edwardian blouse styles with a high fitted neckline, a fitted bodice and more distinctive shoulders. They often had lace panels running down the front or decorating the front of the bodice, and also the necklines in different varieties. I really wanted to make a cozy autumn jumper that had all the elegance and the lace, or the feel of lace, as the original Edwardian blouses would have been. Now these original blouses would not have been made in wool or a thick fabric in any kind really. Late Victorian, early Edwardian styles are predominantly laces in silk or chiffon. There's gorgeous chiffon blouses, there's really thin cotton muslin. So there's this gossamer ethereal vibe to both blouses and also dresses. Everything is really flowy and just very elegant and ethereal, and that's harder to do if you want to make cozy knitwear. So that was not one of the key aspects that I wanted to recreate. I wanted for this one to focus on the silhouette, and also to make sure that the lace, the lace front panel and the silhouettes were the 2 most important things for me to try to catch the essence of with this. I have other patterns where the flowiness is more important, so I feel like focusing on the silhouette rather than the fabric characteristics was the way to go for this. It is knit, let's get into the knitting specifics. It's knit top down. Most of my patterns are bottom up. This is another top down pattern. So you start knitting the neckline back and forth, and then, as you saw in the little video introduction earlier with these segments where I showed the patterns in more detail, you will have seen it has buttons at the back of the neckline. So it's knit back and forth with buttonholes, and then once you finish with the length of your neckline, you connect it in the round, and then you start knitting in the round. The most exciting thing about this pattern for me, construction wise, was I didn't want to pick up sleeves. I wanted to knit the sleeves as I went, but I didn't want a typical raglan shaping to the sleeves, which is probably the most common when you're doing shaping here, or you could of course shape and increase evenly, but then you don't get the sleeve seam, and I really wanted a sleeve seam because that gives it more of that authentic feel, because vintage blouses and jumpers were seamed always. And so I really wanted a sleeve seam, I just didn't want it to be a diagonal raglan sleeve seam. So I wanted to make a straight seam. I've never done this before. I didn't know of anyone who had done it before. I just knew that I really wanted to try. So what I figured that I had to do, I had to make sure I had enough stitches on my needles for the bust. And when you're not doing, so as I had to sort of knit out until where I started the seam, where I wanted the seam to start and where I wanted it to cut down. And so what you do is you can see there's a seam line here, and this is done with a raglan increase. So the increase every single round as you move down here, and then you get enough stitches so that when you reach this section, you don't actually have to do any more increases on the bodice, you only do increases in the sleeves. And I was so happy when this worked, and honestly this construction is so much fun. I will admit, I thought I had invented this amazing new way of doing things, and then I was looking on Instagram, just randomly browsing, and I think Petite Knit has done something similar in her April cardigan. So probably not that revolutionary then, but I did think of this on my own. I didn't look at anyone else's way of doing it. So for myself, I invented it for myself, and then someone else just invented it also without me knowing. But I am so happy with how this worked. You can now have a sleeve that's knit at the same time as the body, get a straight seam line, and it really works well. And I love also the straight shoulder increase seam. Seams can be really gorgeous if you're looking for that silhouette. They give this look of structure and tailoring, and so that was such fun to do. And I'm not even gonna, it was challenging just to get my head around doing it this way because I'd never done it before, and we didn't know at the time that anyone had done it before. And it was, but then when it works, it's so rewarding. So that's how you start the construction. The lace panel is knit all the way down. We'll just keep repeating it. It's a very simple lace pattern. It's very intuitive once you've done a few rounds, and you just repeat, and it goes all the way down. It might not be that easy to show you with just the contrast of white under this brown, so I'm going to show you here. So as you can see, it's a really simple pattern of knit, purl, twisted, knits and purls, yarn overs, and knitting togethers. It's really intuitive and simple once you get into it. And then you reach this section, and now you have a choice to make. You can choose a more subtle puff shoulder, which only increases a few times. I probably wouldn't even go so far as to say it's a proper puff shoulder. It just sort of blouses up a teeny tiny bit on the shoulder, and also again creates that lovely tailored look of something having been ruched very subtly, which you get with some of these patterns. There are, in the later Victorian era, you see more of the puff, and then as you go into the Edwardian era, there's less and less of it, and more of just a very subtle gathering of fabrics, which this creates. So you can choose this one, or you can choose a slightly more distinctive puff shoulder, which this one is knit in, which you will have seen in the video. This has a lot more increases at the shoulder. It's still not massive, like you can wear it for every day, you can use it for everyday wear, but it still creates more of that silhouette with these puff shoulders, lending you more of that Victorian rather than Edwardian vibe. And each to their own. Some people really love puff shoulders, then go for this one, and if it's not really your bag, then even this is going to be really, really nice. I wouldn't cut them out altogether. And then the sleeves, once you reach this section, of course, you just separate and then knit the body down and then each sleeve down. The collar, the cuffs, and hem is all knit in twisted rib. Something I forgot to mention is when you reach this section, there is an instruction for how you can individually sort of tailor it to your own body, because shoulder measurements don't really follow set sizes. I'm a size small, medium, usually a small, because nothing, but I have wide shoulders, and I know people who are an extra small, but they have wide shoulders, and I have friends who are larger, who are an extra large or a double XL, and they have really petite narrow shoulders. So your size and your measurements don't always add up to your shoulder width. This is just purely genetics, whereas your size kind of fluctuates a bit. And so what you can do is you just measure and try it on, and then, because you don't want these to fall down there or to be in there, so you can adjust accordingly, and then you just have to add up the missing or too many stitches once you reach this section. It's all described in the pattern, but that's just something that's in there, just so you know. There are instructions for tailoring the shoulder width to your own shoulders, because they really don't follow set sizes. More fabric characteristics I haven't said, I've only talked construction thus far. This pattern is knit with 2 strands of yarn held together. I have used 1 fingering weight yarn and 1 strand of mohair silk, and these together create this beautiful, just drapey but still dense, fuzzy fabric that I just adore. And holding a strand of mohair and a strand of fingering weight is nothing new. I assume many of you have already done it before, so you know what fabric characteristics I am referring to. I really love it, and it's the perfect density and thickness and drape for a autumn winter pattern, because this is so warm and the mohair makes it just so much cozier. Absolutely love it. You could, if mohair is not your thing, just knit it in a DK weight in a solid yarn. You will of course lose the fuzz, but again, if mohair is not your thing, then that's probably not something you're going for. But a normal DK weight should be absolutely fine. The gauge for the pattern is 18 stitches equals 10 centimeters of knitted fabric in stockinette. I met gauge on 4mm needles, which is a US size 6. However, a lot of my test knitters did not, and went up to a 4.5mm, or even I think a couple went up to a 5. So check your gauge. It's a no ease pattern. It's intended to fit snugly. It's not intended to have any positive ease whatsoever. As for quantities, I have knit the size small in both of mine. I used 200 grams of my fingering weight. This one I have knit in Fabel Knitwear Athena, which is my hand-dyed yarn in the colourway Acorn, accompanied by a strand of my mohair silk, also in Acorn. I used 200 grams of Athena, which is 800 meters, and I used 100 grams of mohair silk, which is also 2 skein, or just under, really. I have this much left in my size small. I've not measured these, but these are really not that much. And I always wear my garments cropped. This is instructed to be a cropped pattern, but I know a lot of people prefer them to be a tiny bit longer than I do. So I would still, this is probably a good leeway to have when it comes to length and sleeve length and body length and all that stuff. This pattern extends up to a size 3XL, which is a 135cm bust. However, with that said, I would love to extend the sizing. I couldn't get testers for larger sizes. If you want to knit this and it doesn't fit you, drop me an email. I will grade it up and send you the pattern for free for you to test at your own leisure. So full disclaimer there, I am always happy to grade my patterns up if they are not in an existing size, and I do not want to publish patterns in sizes that have not been tested and thus quality checked. At least I don't want you to pay for that. And so 3XL 135cm is the largest at this date. Hopefully this will change. What you need for the largest size though, let me just so you know, the span of yardage is 400 grams of fingering weight and 200 grams of mohair silk. So 4 skeins of each. If you are using 2 strands held double. And again, you can always use DK weight instead. So as I said, this is knit in Athena. Athena is my fingering weight merino nylon gold stellina base. And the gold stellina with the mohair silk is utter magic. The sparkle is kind of subdued because the mohair creates this fuzz and halo on top, but when it shines through, it's so magical. I love this combination and it's so soft to wear. So cozy. I really want this in so many more colors in this combination. My white one is not knit in my yarn. This is knit in Pickles. And it is also just lovely. This is knit in Pickles Merino Bliss and Pickles Silk Mohair. So their Merino Bliss is just a one ply merino, simple as that, and their mohair silk is just that as well. So 2 options here, but any mohair silk and any fingering weight yarn should do. Just always make sure you convert your yardage from the pattern to the yarn you're using to make sure you have enough meters or yards to go the distance. Now, buttons are a favourite of mine, and so making patterns with buttons, they're not just conventional cardigans, but buttons in like charming places, I love it. And so there are 3 buttons at the back of the neck. Look at these. These are just this gorgeous brass coloured floral button, and the ones on this are little golden hearts that my sister bought for me. And these are the kind of details that I just really enjoy, not only designing but also as a knitter, that I love doing and finishing off, and then it just makes it feel like such a just finished project, if that makes any sense. It just gives it that finishing touch of that finishing details of paying attention to detail, I guess. And I really enjoy that, those aspects of tiny details that you know about. And then when other people notice them and see them and comment on them, it just makes it all the more fun. So I love this, and I love picking out buttons, and I also really enjoy how buttons can sort of give that finishing touch of a style. If I'd gone for wooden buttons, this would have a completely different style when you notice them, or a different vibe than when I have these really opulent little hearts. And so I really enjoy that aspect. One thing I forgot to show at the very beginning was my sketch. Sometimes my sketches are super detailed because I know exactly what I want, and sometimes they are just the vague idea of what I want, and then it sort of starts taking shape as I go. This was a case of the latter, so I just did silhouettes with doodling. And this is the sketch, the first sketch, and this is all I went of. That's the silhouette I wanted, and I just figured I will figure out the lace and all that stuff as I go, and the shoulders and everything. The important thing here is the silhouette. Now I knit up a sample first up, and it didn't work. I don't have it here, so I can't show you, but I will pop in a picture. I knit it in Fabel Knitwear Athena Fleur, held with a strand of Fabel Knitwear mohair silk in petal, and this colour combination is absolute magic. I love it. But the pattern, no, there was too much happening. I knit it top down, and then I did a version where I picked up stitches for the sleeves and knit them out, and it just turned out way too heavy and drapey, and I did a different cuff. It was just too much, and the neckline was too much. I had a little ruffle on it, and the pattern, I was going for the vertical with horizontal lacing, as most Edwardian lace panels do. There is usually a contrast of horizontal lace as well, but it didn't work, and I knew really early on, really, probably about yay, that it wasn't working. But I wanted to see, and I wanted to finish it, and then I could establish what wasn't working and why. And so I did, finished the whole thing, and there was just so much going on. And I think if I'd sewn it in a muslin or a silk or any period appropriate fabric, it would have been gorgeous. But because it was knitted, and it was knitted with two strands held together, it was just so dense and heavy and just way too much. And so I scrapped it. And then I knew what worked, I knew what didn't, and that's when I established I didn't want to pick up stitches for the sleeves and knit them out. The horizontal lacing wasn't working, and the ruffle was too much. And so instead I catalogued all those elements that I put into the first version and sort of sort them into things I can do later. So maybe the ruffle didn't work on this one, but I'll need a simpler design for it, which I can do later. So it was really helpful knitting it through, even though I knew really quite early on that this wasn't a finished garment, but I added in all the elements I thought of doing, and then I could pick out the things that worked and didn't work and sort them into things I can do later. And so that was actually really helpful. So to finish off this introduction to my heirloom jumper, I am going to show you some outfits. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you like this pattern. I'm so excited about it. I want to knit it in all the colours. Let me know what colours you would knit it in and what you'd style it with and all that stuff. I love hearing your thoughts about these videos, and not to mention the patterns. So yeah, I join in the conversation and let me know what you think. I really hope you like it. This is probably just a last bit to add. I've not had as much fun as I had knitting these, even the second version, in a long time. This is so much fun to knit, at least I thought so. I don't know how, there's just something about it, it's so intuitive, and yet there's something happening all the time and it doesn't get boring. I just had such fun with this, the most fun that I've had in a really, really long time. And I have a lot of fun knitting, so that's saying something. This pattern is available on Etsy and on Ravelry. If you hop on over to fabelknitwear.com, there I have a pattern page for it, and it'll take you to all the places you can buy this pattern. So head on over and do that. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. Bye.